Hi everyone, it's Zoe here from Living with a Sleeve. I wanted to go live today to answer a really common question that I get asked either before or after surgery. And this common question is, can I eat the same as my family? So if you're thinking about surgery, I get that question because I guess it's kind of figuring out what life will be like after surgery. But afterwards, I often get that question if people are feeling a little bit isolated or not managing to kind of fit in with the new family dynamics, particularly around food and when eating together is something that we do to socialize, to bond, and once you need to change your habits after surgery, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to adjust to the whole family. So look, I wanted to address this, and the short answer, I'll go into a little bit more detail, but the short answer is yes, absolutely. It just takes a little bit of planning. Okay, so the first thing I want you to think about is, as dietitians, for the general population, the thing that we recommend for everybody in terms of healthy eating is that plate. So you've probably seen it, where it is a quarter protein, a quarter carbohydrates, and half veggies. Do you know it? Great. So the bariatric portion plate is slightly different. It's obviously smaller, so it's about the size of a bread and butter plate, but the proportions are different on that plate as well. So on the bariatric plate, we have half protein and half veggies. So if you're thinking about cooking well and cooking healthy meals for the whole family, you really want to be eating stuff that is fresh, lots of veggies, at least half their plate, proteins, so lean proteins like beef, chicken, fish, legumes, and then some good quality carbohydrates like sweet potato, whole grains, and if you're thinking about eating then from a bariatric point of view after a sleeve, it's exactly the same. It's just that the proportions might change and your portion size will obviously change too. So you're going to fill half your plate with veggies or salad, and then half your plate with lean protein, so those meat, chicken, fish, eggs, legumes, lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans, tofu, those sorts of things. And then you might have just a little bit of carbohydrate. The reason we want the main focus to be the protein and the veggies is so that you can get the nutrients that you really need, because your portion sizes are small. And remember, those portions are about half a cup. So if you're cooking for the family and, for example, you're making meat and veg and potatoes, let's go with a traditional Aussie dish, that's quite easy. So your family will have obviously bigger portions, and they'll have that quarter half, so meat, potatoes and vegetables, whereas you can serve exactly the same but on a smaller plate. And obviously this is quite a long way after surgery if we're going with a piece of steak, because sometimes steak is quite hard to eat. But the same thing goes for a stew or a casserole or tacos with a mince, for example. All of those are great options and easy to adjust. So any type of stew or casserole, if you're serving them with rice or mashed potato, for example, you can easily just serve yourself a smaller portion of the meat and veg, the actual casserole, but just a smaller amount, maybe a tablespoon of the rice or the potato. Okay, so the other thing that I think is interesting after surgery is obviously we need to slow down. So ideally a meal would take 20 to 30 minutes to eat, and that's that 1 cup sort of portion. And sometimes that dynamic when you're sitting around the table can be a little bit tricky, because often most of us eat way too fast. So in general, everybody should be taking at least 20 to 30 minutes to eat their meal. But in reality, some of us can easily eat a full plate size in 5 minutes or less. So this one might take a little bit of negotiating and communication with your family, because the last thing you want is to have sat down at the table and everybody else is finished and they get up and leave you there by yourself. Instead, what I would recommend is that you spend a little bit of time talking with your family about what you can and can't do and what kind of new life and new eating habits is going to be for you, asking for their support, and making it fun too. So maybe you could have a who can eat the slowest competition, or maybe you could all practice using the bariatric timer, which is a little app that you can use to help you to slow down. Maybe you could use it as the time of the day where you all sit around the table together and catch up with one another and report back from your day. So that conversation makes it a little bit easier for everybody to slow down and to spend their time at the table. The other thing I wanted to have a little bit of a chat about, so we've spoken about, what the plate should look like, how you can eat the same thing as your family, and then maybe we've also sort of touched on how you can start to get everybody to sit at the table together so that you don't feel so isolated. The last thing is a little bit of meal planning around the family. And my favourite thing to do here, especially if you have children, is to get them involved in the meal planning. The last thing you want to be doing is cooking meals for your kid, a meal for your partner, and then a meal for yourself. And you don't need to be doing that. Kids should be eating, from an early age, similar foods to adults so that they get used to eating lots of variety, especially if they don't like veggies. We need to try and get them into them. And after weight loss surgery, after a sleeve, really you should be eating the same thing and as your partner too. So really what I think in terms of meal planning is a good way to go is to think first of all, get everybody around the table, write down a list of family favourites, think about whether those family favourites fit that quarter, half, okay, for everybody else. So does it have a really good quality, like lean protein? Does it have a good quality carbohydrate, like a sweet potato, pasta, rice, quinoa, a whole grain? And then does it have lots of vegetables, or do you need to beef it up with a salad or extra side veggies? So once you've done that and you've got your list of family favourite meals, then you can start to kind of piece it together and figure out what you want to have each night. And if the family is involved in that, they're going to be much more on board with helping you in the kitchen, helping with preparation of meals, eating those meals, especially if we have fussy eaters, and sitting there and waiting for you while you eat if you're a little bit slower than them. So I'd love to hear, every week I'm going to do a live Q&A. I hope this one has been helpful. If you have any questions that you'd like me to cover, please either send me a private message to livingwithasleeve.com or email me, zoe@zoewilsonnutrition.com. Okay? It's been a pleasure, guys. I will see you next week. Bye.